Good evening. Welcome to PoliticIt podcast. Tonight we have Ricky Hatch, and we've had Ricky on many times, and we've talked about elections, and a lot of people may not know that you're actually the county auditor as well, right? And so, but now we have an announcement. Really, I noticed something when I looked at the website looking to see who was running against me, and then I saw your name down there. So. Tell everybody what your plans are and what are you doing?
Yeah, so I finally decided to run for state auditor. I knew that John Dougal was not going to run for re-election, and I frankly was a little concerned that the good work that he's done there and the fantastic progress he's made there wouldn't last, and I want to keep that. And it was not an easy decision because I love where I'm working. Love it. I love serving, and I love serving.
Well, and you've done an amazing job in Weber County. The thing I've liked too is that you always show up at the Republican meetings too, and just to kind of have an idea about what's going on and with everything, right?
Yeah, and I think it's really important. People like to dig on the parties and say it's all a bunch of insiders, but there are people who want to get stuff done, and you may or may not agree with them, but there are people who they want to make the country better, our state better, our counties, and God bless them for that. I love it, and we may disagree sometimes, and that's perfectly fine. That makes for better leadership, better governance.
And now you're going from a county-wide race, which is pretty big. Now you're going to a statewide race. This will be a different experience, won't it?
It's totally foreign territory. I'll be honest. I don't know what I'm doing, so we'll figure it out. I'm learning, but it's drinking from a fire.
So why should people give you a chance with that?
Well, like you said, I realize I've been kind of in the limelight a little bit for election reasons, but I got my master's degree in accounting. I'm a CPA. I worked for a big six firm. I've worked in the U.S. I've worked overseas and have a lot of experience from an accounting and finance perspective. And I've brought some of that into the elections world as well. But I've always had an enjoyment of financial and audit matters, and a passion for it, a passion for a good accountability, transparency, efficiency, and now I've got 25 years of experience. Some of it sure is elections, but a lot of it is also related to county financing, state legislative work, national standards on accounting. I've done a lot of things in the accounting world. I just don't talk about them as much.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people, I know being in the legislature, I see you all the time, right, during the legislative session. And people don't, in Weber County, probably don't know how involved you already are at a statewide level, even nationally, right?
Right. And it's a messy process, the legislature. You know that. And it's supposed to be slow and clumsy and cumbersome. And that's how it's designed. I think that's how the founders wanted it, so that we would really not make rash decisions and plug along.
And we really don't need 500 new bills 500 new laws every year, right?
I would like that number to be much lower. Yeah, absolutely.
So tell everybody why you're at the legislature a lot. What is it that you do that's different than some of our other auditors in the state?
Well, it was probably about 8 years ago, the clerks and auditors group, we were not doing well at the legislature. There were a lot of bills passed that we would fight against and just lose. And the several legislators said, we don't like your group. Your group is not well represented. And I brought that up to the group and said, we've got to change how we do things. And they said, let's have you be the face. And so they had me be kind of the lead for the legislative issues for both clerks and auditors. Now, the past couple of years, I focused a little bit more on elections, and we've been able to have somebody else take up the mantle for the auditor side. And this year, I'll do both as well, and assist quite a bit with the auditor side. But so it involves reading every bill that's related that could have an impact, and then working with legislators to help them accomplish what they want in the bill without making some bad decisions. So really trying to improve the bill so that it's good, or in some cases less bad.
So what does a state auditor do?
Well, I went back and looked at the Constitution, 3 lines, and virtually nothing. It just says the state auditor conducts a post-financial audit of the state agencies. But then the last line says, and anything else the state legislature tells that position to do. So you go to the state code, and there's a ton of stuff. So there's a lot to do with education. There's a lot to performance, budgeting, training, setting up standard charts of accounts. And John Dougal has done a tremendous amount of additional projects, Project Kids, which provides some performance metrics around education.
That is one of the most amazing things I've seen, actually, where he has effectively used the data that comes in to actually tell people what's going on.
Right.
He knows stuff through that project that most superintendents don't know, even though they're in charge of the budget.
Right. Yeah, and it's so important to take a look at the metrics. We have such great tools now, including AI, but all sorts of great tools where you can collect and aggregate a good amount of data that previously you just couldn't get it. And you can make some sense of it to see potential trends and potential things, and then you follow up and see if that really is true. You can't let data drive everything, but it sure can provide a good first draft, or point you in the right direction, and then you research.
So how do you prepare to take on a task like this? Because it's a huge job.
Yeah, it is. I think you start by understanding what the legal role is. And I've talked with Auditor Dougal several times over the past couple of years, asking him more about the role. I sit on his advisory committee, and so I wanted to know more about what the office does and challenges that they face. And I just need to learn more. I need to learn more about what the statutory responsibilities are. And then I want to dig in and see what people liked about what he's doing, because that's what I want to emulate. And then the transverse, I want to see what people don't like that he's doing, and can we improve that?
Very good. Well, hey, we're going to take a break, and then we'll come back.
Right.
Okay.
Previously on PoliticIt.
Congressman, it's great to have you here. And you've just announced to run for the Senate.
I have.
What got into you?
Exactly. I've been serving in the House for the last 6 years in the 3rd Congressional District. And there's a number of things. We need more than just the amount of time in your show to talk about them. But I feel strongly that it's important for me to jump into this race.
Welcome back to PoliticIt podcast. We have Ricky Hatch, and if you tuned in earlier, Ricky has now announced a run for the state auditor position, and that's something. So we were talking a little bit about the state roles that you've had in helping with the legislature, but you're on a lot of national things as well. Tell us a little bit about what you do there.
I do some national things on the election side, but I do them also on the audit side. So I'm I'm a founding member of the Department of Homeland Security's Government Coordinating Council for Elections Infrastructure. There's about 25 of us that helped create and establish that, and I helped write the National Incident Response Plan for elections infrastructure.
Wow. And so how did that come about?
That came about right after Secretary Jay Johnson announced that elections infrastructure was critical infrastructure. That was in early 2017, right as Trump was taking office. That triggered a whole bunch of activities, and I had a lot of contacts through my other roles on a national level in the elections world, and they called me and said, we need to stand up this committee. Would you come out and assist us, help us figure out the best way to do that?
So is that an appointment then by the Homeland Security chief, or was it appointment by the president? How did that?
It came through the Homeland Security.
Okay.
Yeah. Another board that I was on, or that I'm on, I've been on for about 3 years, is the Governmental Accounting Standards Advisory Council, the GASAC, and it's a 35-member board, and those are appointed. And I'm the representative for the National Association of Counties, so I represent county governments across the nation. And what that council does is they advise the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, the GASB, which is the standard-setting board for all accounting principles and standards for all governments throughout the country. So we meet back in New York 3 or 4 times a year. We go a couple of days talking about accounting theory. They propose ideas.
Sounds fascinating to me.
It's the best. We realize we're nerdy, but we have a good time, and we go in depth on really detailed principles that make a huge difference, because that determines insurance rates. Your finances determine lending rates if you go out to bond, and you have to be able to trust those financial statements, and those are based off of these standards.
So you've got to be one of the few county auditors in Utah that have gone to that level in terms of, impacting what happens with auditors, right?
I think so. I'm not aware of any other county auditors that have served in that position, at least over the last 30 years.
Now, you said you represent all of the counties in the U.S.
Yeah, 3,069 counties, and they selected me to be the one that represents, and I gather a team, and we talk about it. We talk it through the key issues and recommendations, but I'm the only one at the meetings.
So that's got to be incredible experience as far as going to a statewide audit role, right?
Yeah, I've met with treasurers and auditors from across the country, partly because of that role, and look forward to working.
So in your accounting experience before, you actually did auditing, but it was more on IT stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah. So when I got my master's from BYU in audited professional accounting, and then went and worked for Price Waterhouse. Now it's Price Waterhouse Coopers, but I worked there. I worked in Los Angeles, and when I interviewed with a kind of an IT specialty, and so I did financial audits to get the CPA license, but then I also got a certification, Certified Information Systems Auditor, which is a focus on systems themselves, the physical security of the systems, cybersecurity, controls, chain of custody, and accuracy of the actual applications. And it was a pretty fledgling industry back then. It's gotten a lot bigger, and I love that concept. I think with how much automation we have now in everything we do, you've got to be able to understand how the systems work and how they're controlled.
Well, and I don't think a lot of people in the state realize that our Auditor Dougal actually has really gone way out in terms of information systems and gathering data and making that available to people to make better decisions. I know that Project Kids that you talked about, amazing tool.
It's massive, and he just launched another project dealing with property values, where you can go just about everywhere in the state, and you can use this tool to identify how much the properties next to you in your neighborhood, in your city, have changed in value compared to yours. And the map highlights outliers, properties that have increased dramatically or decreased dramatically. It's another transparent tool that he's put into place that can gather and aggregate massive amounts of data so that people can look and they can explore. And again, it's just data, but that leads to further discussion.
Oh, well, and that means that this other experience you had in your prior life is really going to be key to this job.
Yeah, and I never would have thought when I started. In fact, they said, "Hey, we want you to come interview for governmental accounting." And I said, "Who would do that? That's got to be the most boring job ever, to work for government accounting." And boy, was I wrong, because every day is interesting, not just from my elections, but from an accounting perspective, to look back and literally you can look back and say, what are the founding principles that apply in this decision that we're trying to make that seemingly is just an accounting decision? But if you look back, you can apply those decisions through those filters. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are your plans going forward then? How do you handle a statewide race like this?
I've got to learn. I've got to read and talk with people, and hopefully talk with Auditor Dougal some more, and just see how it works, see what functions are included in that office, and see what he's done well, and then latch onto that and enhance and augment it, and then see where there have been weaknesses or areas of improvement, and then figure out how to do that. But I've got to meet the people and read the code and get familiar with that office, and then maybe campaign a little bit too.
Yeah, that's going to be a chore. And you're going to have a full schedule coming up here in a week with the legislature as well.
I don't know what is going to happen. I'm glad I don't have to sleep very much in order to function, because it's going to be a busy legislative session and a busy campaign, and lots of things going on.
So Ricky, why you? Why should people vote for you?
Good question. I'm still figuring it out, but I have been prepared my whole career to serve in government. And it's a passion of mine, and I bring along with that passion, I bring along experience both in the accounting world, the legislative world, and local government. And then along that, I bring an attitude or a personality that focuses on collaboration, and let's figure out the truth, and whether we like it or not, the truth is the truth, and let's move forward.
Very good. Thank you, Ricky Hatch. So nice to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you guys next week.